Actually, my network is pretty weak. So I request you to kind of screen share.
Sure. I need to get access for that.
Okay, I'll start with the session. Good evening, everyone. We are live now on YouTube. Uh, I extend a warm welcome to everyone who's joined us for this session today, and a huge welcome to our expert speaker, Muskaan. We are very delighted to have you for this session. Our goal today is to deepen our understanding of the essential concepts, methodologies, and best practices in public policy analysis. Sarkari School presents this session a deeper dive in understanding policy analysis and its new world impact to you. We're thrilled to have Muskaan as we embark on this journey to explore the dynamic, ever evolving field all of us are kind of enthusiasts of. In today's world, public policy is a dynamic field that's of greater impact. And I think by doing this session, we not only encourage the youth that has joined us today, but also send across this message to anyone who wishes to know about the discipline. Before we begin with the session today, I would like to invite Shivpriya to Nikita to tell us more about our organization, Sarkari School, so that we can begin with the session. Nikita?
Yes. Sure. I will now like to introduce our organization, Sarkari School, to you all. Sarkari School is an initiative of We Citizen Foundation. Since 2019, this platform has been known for recognizing and celebrating the unsung heroes who tirelessly contribute to the upliftment of government schools and education. These individuals deserve not only our appreciation but also our support and recognition to inspire others. They demonstrate that with self-determination and hard work, anything is possible, even without substantial backing. Our primary objective is to change the negative perception surrounding government schools and create a supportive ecosystem where society can act as a true friend of these institutions. We strive to engage the youth and encourage their involvement in developing the favorable ecosystem for government schools. In the last 4 years, we were able to engage with more than 3,000 plus youth across India and also had the privilege to work with more than 500 plus schools across India. At Sarkari School, we aspire to become a think tank by addressing and resolving issues in a constructive manner to bring in more discourse and discussion on crucial subjects. As we know, the government schools are often stereotyped and subject to negative judgment. It often overshadows the achievement of government schools. Thank you. Now I over to Shivpriya.
Thank you, Nikita. Now I would like to introduce our speaker. Ms. Muskaan Sofet completed her dual degree in public administration from London School of Economics and Columbia University. She was awarded the prestigious Blocker Scholarship for her volunteering work prior to her degree. She has also worked in the field of development economics with NGOs and think tanks in the education sector in India. She also had a chance to work with the government of Delhi in their education department. She is currently working at Moody's Investor Service as an economic researcher. It is with immense pleasure we welcome you. Well, a very warm welcome to you, Ms. Khan.
Thank you so much for having me and, really giving me this platform to talk to so many young people back home who are interested in this really up and coming field. So I think before we start, I just had 3 house rules, which would really help us throughout this discussion, because more than me talking, this discussion is really for all the viewers and for all the people who've joined today who really want to know more about this field. So the first one, if possible, I know it's evening time in India and there's usually a lot of noise at home and things like that. But if possible, I'd really love to see all your faces. So if you could turn your camera on, that would help me and help us have a better engaged discussion. And second, I would encourage you to ask questions, and I'll ask someone from the Sarkari school team to monitor the chat. In case you have any questions, you can stop me in the middle and we can go over it. And lastly, I would love for each and every person on this call to really participate and be present. Because, like I mentioned earlier, this session is for you to know as much about public policy and really ask me questions and get to know what it is and how you can involve yourself in the field. So use me for the next 30 minutes, ask me whatever you want, and I will do my best to answer your questions. All right, so starting off with that, my first question to everyone here, and I will also participate in this, is why should you pursue a career in public policy? And you can maybe type your answers in the chat box. If anyone has any idea as to why they think they want to pursue a career in public policy. Okay, let me probably start by telling you why I pursued a career in public policy. So I never really thought that this is a field I'm going to be in. But I did know 3 things. First was I definitely wanted to be part of an organization or part of a field which can create some sort of impact at the ground level, at a big scale. But I didn't know what fields do that. I know the government did that. I know that if you volunteer for NGOs, you could do that. But my second concern was I wanted something which would give me financial independence. And I mean, it's great to talk about volunteering work, but after some point, you have to sustain yourself and you need to have a stable income, right? And my third criteria was I thought I wanted to be in a profession which would make me think critically about issues. Some people like to travel, some people like a desk job. I wanted a thinking job, which would constantly, make me question things. Because, like, I was the kind of student in school who always just had a lot of questions. So I knew from early on that I really wanted to kind of question things and do that on a daily basis. So this was my reason of why I wanted to get into public policy. And mind you, I had no idea what it was. I had no idea that such a thing even existed or what really were the career opportunities available with it. And I can see some people have written that it will help them connect with the grassroots and know about their issues. That's great. Direct way you can affect a large group of people and lead to social welfare. That's also correct. So I think ultimately, like that one thread which really everyone is talking about is this profession, apart from, what makes it different than other professions is the fact that ultimately, at whatever level you are, whatever work you do, ultimately it will have an impact on another person. Apart from you, there will be a third party who will benefit from your actions. And that's what makes public policy or any career associated with policy work very unique. So there are different ways to get involved with policy. So we'll break it down into the two main streams. First is, how do you acquire the skill set, or how do you learn more about policy? And I think essentially in life, there are two ways to do anything. One, you can study it, or second, you can do it and gain practical experience. So this slide is talking about the first part, which is you study it. And I started my degree in public policy very young. I was around 21 and I didn't know what it was. So I thought the best way to really get involved in the profession is to get a degree and learn more about it. And everyone can have different approaches. This is what I thought was best for me because I was still young. I thought that I could, study more, learn more, and really understand more. Now, public policy has become a much larger buzzword. So people are talking more about it. And you have sessions like these, which are really telling you about ways you can get involved. But it wasn't the same even like 2, 3 years ago. And if you want to go through the first route, the one I took is to study it and then learn over there theoretically as well as from your peers who come with different sort of experiences. These are some of the best universities in the world, according to QS World Ranking for public administration and social policy. And each of them has something unique to offer, but there's also a lot of differences between what each offers. Mainly, there are three kind of degrees related to public policy overarchingly that you can take. The first is a master's in public policy or a master's in public administration, which is like, you could say, an MBA, but instead of teaching you business principles, they teach you social welfare principles. They teach you how you can really make the public profit from your actions, or how companies can make the public profit from their policies. And that's the first. The second is a MPhil, which kind of comes in between like an master's and a PhD. So what an MPhil in like social policy or in political science helps you to do is it helps you to get involved more in research work and academic work. So if you're thinking maybe of becoming like a researcher, or you want to get involved with academic institutions, or you probably want to, work with think tanks who are doing like database research, you can also opt for an MPhil. And the third are kind of joint degrees, which come between the intersection of policy and something else. For example, technology and policy. So if you want to get involved in cybersecurity, or you want to get involved in like data engineering for policy, then you can always opt for kind of these niche intersectional degrees. And all of this really depends on the first question, why you want to study public policy. So before you enter into, these different kind of ways you can do it, you really need to answer that question for yourself. Why is it that I want to do this? What are the things which really interest me about this? And then accordingly, if you want to study it first, you find a degree which helps you understand it. Because if you're like, for example, interested in doing volunteer work, but you go for an MPhil, then that degree is not going to help you. You're going to come out with a degree which is not that beneficial for you. You didn't really want to get into research and academia. You wanted to do more on ground work. So you end up wasting money, time, and effort. So the first thing that you should ask yourself is why I want to study this. And within public policy, what is it that really, really intrigues me? What is it, which part of it is the one which I really think I can contribute to? Now, the second is, if you don't want to study, which is completely fair, not a lot of people like studying. I mean, after doing engineering, or people like switching from doing like a JD, it's completely all right if you feel like, I've done my share of work, I have studied enough, I cannot open another textbook. I directly want to go in and I want to start creating this impact. And in today's day, that's very possible. So the first thing which public policy offers, which maybe not a lot of other professions offer, is every skill in the public policy sector. Um, Hello, I'm so sorry about that. Yeah. A lot of these skills are transferable. So there are essentially overarching four kind of professions that you can get involved in public policy. First, a big misconception: you don't only need to be a part of the government or take the UPSC to be part of public policy. Private sector jobs also offer a lot of roles in policy. The second, there's of course government agencies and government roles that you could do. Third, you can also partner with NGOs and nonprofits for paying positions. Being a volunteer is one thing, but being at the head of an organization or being at the head of an NGO is very different, and they are paid positions. And lastly, there are a lot of multilateral organizations like the UN, the IMF, the World Bank, which also allow you to practice as a public policy professional. And what you need to understand is that each of these different sectors have a different pay range. You can't expect a private sector job to pay you as much probably as a nonprofit can. But I would say is that no matter the role that you initially get involved in, make sure that you are doing it because you feel like that's the avenue where you can learn the most, and that's the avenue where you can make a difference in your own way the most. So each of them, if you see the list in gray, they are roles that I've picked up from each of these professions. And a lot of them are intertransferable. So you can be a data analyst in a private sector, you can be a data analyst in the government sector, you can be a researcher for a multilateral, you can be a researcher for the government. A lot of it is a lot of it is intertransferable. But what makes each of them unique is your contribution to it. For example, if you're passionate about education, then the best thing for you to do is either align with a think tank who's doing research on education or get into actually teaching. If, for example, you feel that, I'm good with numbers, I'm good with business management, get involved in the private sector. You can manage, there are a lot of policy consultancies that big firms offer in which they take on clients. And who are their clients? The government. Who are their clients? These multilats. So what they really offer to them is a private sector approach to policy. If you think that, yes, I think this is something where I can really use my skill set and also kind of make a difference indirectly without getting involved with the government, that's great. So this umbrella of policy has a lot of different kind of roles which you can take up. Now I'm going to pause here for a minute and see if there are any questions.
Guys, this is the time you can ask Muskaan anything. So, yeah. Naina, like, can you be a bit louder?
Am I audible now? Is it okay now? Okay, wait a minute. Am I audible now?
Yes.
Okay. So, my question was related to data analysis that you mentioned. Can you like explain it a bit simpler? What does a data analyst do, and like how can I like learn data analysis to better my research avenues? Like, can you explain about that?
Sure. So again, like I mentioned, you can be a data analyst for any of these four verticals. You can do it for the private sector, you can do it for non-profits, you can do it for multilateral organizations. What the skill of data analysis is you essentially look at numbers, you look at data sets that come in, and you try to find either patterns or you try to find things which stand out. And then once you figure out the problem, once you see the numbers, once you see the statistics, you can offer insights or solutions based on that. Now, what's the difference between a data analyst for the private sector and a data analyst, for a nonprofit? A nonprofit will look at the data coming in from, for example, its volunteers, number of hours worked, number of students taught, number of activities conducted. And then they will try to analyze, okay, like these many students were taught today. How is it that I can optimize the number of volunteers to the student to make sure that more students are getting catered to? If you're a data analyst, for example, the private sector for a think tank who's doing political consultancies, you will look at the data set of votes coming in from each state, and then you will try to come up with reasonings for it, that okay, this state had these many votes, how many votes did they have 10 years ago or 5 years ago? So as a data analyst, your job essentially is to look at numbers, to look at statistics, and derive meaning out of it, derive patterns out of it. Now, which data set you work with differs from each of these different kind of sectors you get aligned with. Using my own example, I am an economic researcher. So the data I use relates to economic indicators like the inflation data, the GDP data. And I analyze that to see, okay, this is where the country stands today. And this is what we forecast or project the country to stand a year or two from now. So that essentially encompasses what data analysts do. Now, the second question, what is it that you can do to become a data analyst? Essentially, there is only one skill required for any data analyst, which is you need to know a programming software and you need to know Excel. Excel is a very handy tool. And when I say Excel, not basic like creating charts, but really how to kind of do regressions on it or how to use formulas on it. Or you can opt for understanding any statistical software like Python, R, CS+. So what you need to have is a tool which can help you analyze big data sets. And I think that's the only skill required for becoming a data analyst, the main skill.
Thank you.
Anything else, like anything y'all want to know about any of these kind of professions that we've listed, about multilateral organizations?
Yes, I wanted to ask, like, you told about what skills are required in data analyst. So, what all skills are required in being a public policy analyst?
Mhm. So when you say public policy analyst, it differs from what kind of public policy analysis you want to do. The field is called public policy, but the profession of a public policy analyst depends on the kind of sector you get involved with, because you're not going to be doing the same work that you're doing at an NGO that you would be probably doing at a multilateral organization. So, which is why, again, tying it back, the first question, why public policy? It really helps you narrow down what kind of sector you want to be involved with. And then the profession of being a public policy analyst will depend on that sector. But overarchingly, there are two main kind of jobs that public policy analysts do. One is they provide recommendations to problems So for example, if you're working for a nonprofit, a public policy analyst will recommend policies on how to really enhance the work that the nonprofit is doing, whether it is by getting more funding or how to efficiently allocate the funding, or what kind of people they should hire. That is, for example, a policy analyst's work to make recommendations. If you're a policy analyst for like the UN or the World Bank, your job would entail advising governments as to what is it that they should be doing, how is it that they can optimize a policy that they've taken out, what is it that they need to kind of get involved with in terms of making the benefits of their policy reach a wider audience or reach, a larger population. So that essentially is the work of a policy analyst, making those recommendations. And those recommendations come from roles like data analysis, where you see data, and that's the first step. You see data, you identify the problem, and then the policy analyst gives you recommendations on the problem. Okay. And then someone's written, I would like to know more about professionals related to consultancy. Yeah. So, for example, organizations such as McKinsey, Deloitte, EY, you must have heard of them. And whenever you hear of them, you think of, okay, like they're private sector consultancies. But a lot of people don't know this, but a lot of these consultancies have a public sector wing. So they do private sector consulting and they do public sector consulting. Now, the public sector consulting, what is the difference? In private sector consulting, your clients are big businesses. In public sector consulting, your clients are governments, NGOs, multilateral organizations, and they essentially do the same kind of consulting work that you would be doing for big companies, but they do it for governments. So, for example, something that you can take is, a lot of times governments come out with these big reports on their performance in certain sectors like education or health. So who really makes these reports? It comes with the data, and then they can hire a private sector consultants public sector wing. So I will call up BCG and tell them, okay, I want to contact your public sector wing, your public sector consultancy, and I want to give them this contract. This is my data set. Come up with a report for me highlighting the benefits or the impact we've created over the past 5 years in the field of healthcare. So that is what public sector consulting does. The next one is, can you please talk about outreach and development head more in detail? Does it mean reaching out to the government for policy implementation? Okay, so for example, if you're in the field of outreach and development, that comes under the branch of communication and PR. So what outreach and development really does is, for example, if you take it at a small scale, organize sessions like this, create more branding and imaging of the NGO or the non-profit on a global scale. And why is that important? To raise funds, to raise awareness, to get your organization in the spotlight so that they can do more work or tell people about the work that they're doing. So if you're interested in some sort of communication or PR-based role, then this is a good area to get involved in. Another question is, do we require hard skills like Python, R for public sector consulting? It depends on the job profile. If, for example, the company uses Python or R or statistical software, they will write it in the job requirements. But I feel essentially moving forward, any hard software, everyone should know, at least one. You can pick whatever you want. And I was very afraid of doing data science or learning any sort of software. I'll be very honest with you. It was really not my cup of tea. But going forward, the way each industry works, irrespective of the job you do, it is important to have the working knowledge of one. Why? Because even if you're not directly involved, someone in the company will be using it. So if you can position yourself, if not an expert, but having any sort of base knowledge also about a statistical software, it will really help you position yourself in the company. So I think everyone on this call should learn at least one statistical software. Okay. How does the role of a researcher differ from a data analyst? How does research differ in each industry? Okay, so let's just say, again, the subject matter is different for every industry. If I'm a researcher for a multilateral, I can research on one specific topic of my liking. Like they have research on development economics, they have research on banking in developing countries or emerging markets. There's research done on political risk factors. So the main differentiating factor is the kind of research that you do. Now, depending on the industry, what your research entails is different. For example, if I'm researching for a nonprofit, what is my aim? My aim is to get enough insight into the nonprofit sector for my nonprofit so that I can better my own nonprofit or my own NGO, so that I can give out knowledge about my nonprofit and I can use my insights into bettering my own NGO. If I'm researching for a multilateral organization, my aim is to get out as much information based on data about that country so that that country can pick up those nuances and work on them. You have all of these multilats coming up, with um, like different sort of indexes. You have the Gini index for inequality, you have political risk index, you have the press freedom index. So all of this is research that is done to really give an idea about the availability or the ranking or the positioning of different countries or different institutes. But if you're researching for like a specific NGO or a nonprofit, your aim of that research is different. And okay, as a commerce student, what would my roadmap into policy consulting look like? So as a commerce student, like I mentioned before, public policy is a field with a lot of inter-transferable skills. You do not have to just study history or political science or economics to get involved. Even as a commerce student, the same two parts apply for you. One, look into a school, look into learning about public policy from a proper institute, get a degree. Second, look at these different sectors that I've listed out. Think of a sector in which you feel that you can transfer your skill sets as a commerce student most easily. Apply for that, volunteer, intern, do that work, and then maybe you will see what kind of policy role fits you best. And all right, is there any public relations similar to what you just said about building a positive image? I think yes, like the entire field of public relations involves creating like positive imaging. So whether you're in like a part, like as a journalist, or you're like doing public relations for a company, or branding image like for a state or a city or a municipal body, all of those involve PR stuff and PR campaign. Like public relations is a big, big part of policy in every kind of domain. All right, can you please elaborate more about the scope in the big four? Never seen companies that are coming are sales, finance, business. Yeah. Okay, so I'm not very sure about the scope of these in terms of their hiring process in India, but all of these firms have big public sector wings, maybe what you need to do is go on the company website, find the public sector wing, and contact a person involved in the same to really understand or get an idea as to how you can get involved, whether it's through internships, whether it's through, applying for jobs. You need to get onto each of these different companies that you want to work with and find that tab which tells you about the public sector work that they are doing and get involved. All right. This is the last question, and then I'm going to move on, and then we can stop in the end. Okay. Are there any roles related to on-ground policy implementation, either with government or nonprofits? Yes, there are several roles. Nonprofits, governments, all of them in every capacity offer on-ground implementation roles. It's a very big part of policy, and it's a very important part as well. There are several roles that you can work as campaign managers, you can work as like a lead analyst for like an NGO and get involved in like the on-ground work, administrative support, logistical support. All of them are jobs which require on-ground work and directly facing people and organizations in policy. All right. Yes, so following up from that really interesting Q&A, thank you so much for your questions. I've identified in India like 3 different kinds of organizations that you can align yourself with or get involved with if you want to do public policy. The first are, again, think tanks, research-based organizations. So you have some names like ORF, they do really good research, Brookings, they do really good research. Then you have private think tanks. So the way we spoke about public sector consulting in private organizations, there are also private think tanks that who take on clients and do a lot of political consultancy work for them, who do a lot of like data analysis work for them. And IPAC is a big one. Everyone, I think, might have heard of it when it got famous during the last election cycle. They do some good data work, at least. That's what I know. Another one is Lead Tech. So if you're interested more in like, getting involved in like political consultancy or getting more involved in like data side of things, I think these are great places to start and to align yourselves with. And lastly, also big institutes like where, usually you would go to study in like ISB, IIM, IIT. They too offer, firstly, some of them like IIT policy courses, the third kind that I was talking about, the intersection between policy and another discipline. And also they have a lot of research wings. These organizations also do a lot of research on different topics. So you can easily, the best and most convenient way, look up an area of interest for you, look up which researcher or which professor at these institutes is doing research on that topic, and reach out to them. Reach out to them and learn more about the discipline, learn more about the research that you're doing, and see if you can really offer any insights or you can offer your skills to them. So these are essentially the 3 tiers of organizations where you can work. And this is specifically like in India, but the scope and width of this like really is much larger. These are just a few names which I found online, and I've linked everything. There's a longer list of great organizations where you can start your policy careers with. So I think after the session, you can like share the PDF, and everyone can look into the longer list of organizations which you can align yourself with. And lastly, just to kind of conclude the presentation, moving away a little bit from policy, if you want to get involved in any profession, any kind of job that you want to do going ahead, I recommend finding your niche. Everyone has similar skill sets. Everyone might know the same softwares, but not everyone can have the same interest in a specific area like you do. And that is what will set you apart. Find your niche, because your niche is what is going to guide you in your professional life moving forward. You might do something for money, you might do something for fame, but that will last 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. After your third year, I can guarantee you, if you're not interested in your profession, you will quit, or you will want to be in a situation where you complain about it every single day. And that is not the recipe for leading a good life, and that is not the recipe for being a good policy professional. Because remember, in the private sector, haan, theek hai, chalta hai. Like, a lot of people are more competitive than you, more eager than you. They will go ahead in the ranks. You might be satisfied with where you're at. But in public policy, your actions not only impact you, they impact a third party. They impact people who are looking up to you or looking at you for your research, for your inputs, for your leadership. So public policy is a profession which is not just about yourself. So if you're not interested in, for example, healthcare, don't get involved in healthcare policy. If you're not interested in education, don't get involved in education policy. Find your niche, because that is what will lead to a successful life of a policy professional. And I recommend the 3 Ds for doing this. The first is drive. Have that passion, have those burning questions in you that you really want to ask, you really want to find the answers to, about whatever topic it is. It could be anything. But have that drive for a specific topic. Have the diligence to work towards it. Now, after this call, a lot of you would log off and be like, oh yeah, like I had a great session today. I learned so much about policy, full stop. That is something that you should not be doing. And the people who are doing that, great. Maybe a year or two later, you will actually start diligently working on this if you want to be involved in the field. But the ones who right after this call really look into the subject matter, go through the slides, research about these organizations, research about these universities, are the ones who will be 2 steps ahead of you. They are the ones who are actually going to be your seniors or managers when you decide to enter the field. So be diligent if you want to get involved into this domain and into this industry. If you don't, that's completely fine. Maybe after this call, you feel that, public policy is really not what I thought it was. And that's okay too. But find your niche, have that drive towards it, be diligent. And the last one, which I think is the most important, is have discipline. If you do not have discipline in life, you are not going to be successful in anything that you do. You have to have the discipline to monitor yourself, to regulate yourself, to constantly evaluate where you are and where you want to be. So without discipline, nothing that you're going to do in your professional or personal life even is going to work out. So discipline yourself into following a routine, or discipline yourself into following a path about as to where you want to get. And it could look very different for different people. No one is asking you to, like lead a military lifestyle. That is not what I mean by discipline. What I mean by discipline is know when you're slacking, know when you're procrastinating, and get over it. You are the best compass for yourself, because no one knows you as much as you know yourself. So know when you're not being disciplined about your professional life or about where you want to get, and guide yourself into taking that step or doing that thing, because that is what is going to get you 2 steps ahead of everyone in the curve. And trust me, there are a lot of people who want to get ahead in any field. And that concludes the session. This is all I had to say. We'll still have around 10 minutes for Q&A. And please feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to answer questions, to help you, guide you in your policy journey. I write frequently about public policy and how to get involved on my LinkedIn. So you can reach out to me, or you can reach out to me on my email as well. And I will do my best to respond to you. Please forgive me if there is a delay in response. The time zone difference kind of causes lags in my reply timings, as I think. So you can maybe forgive me for that, but reach out. I'm always happy to help, always happy to guide people who want to get involved in policy. And thank you once again for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Muskaan. I think that was pretty elaborate. I think none of us thought that you'd be sharing this much about like the career prospects with all the people, and it's very gracious of you to do that, because we don't see a lot of people sharing the knowledge that they've gained over time with other people in the same discipline. And I think through this medium, we're able to do that. Okay, I think all our interns are very excited to ask you more questions, and I'm sure they might have. But one question which all of us had in mind when we called you was just to ask you about this idea that you are a graduate in this discipline. So, like as a person, not only me, I think all of us would agree as researchers here that we actually want to do something that we've studied about in a practical manner. Like that is what all of us are searching for. Like here, all of us are passionate about education policy, and the reason for doing a program like Sarkari school or this following the scheme is majorly to implement or like to kind of practically apply what we are studying through policy, right? So as a graduate in the discipline, do you feel that that part of you is gratified that now you're finally getting to like do what you've actually studied? Or do you think like it only happens later in the later stages of the career? Yeah.
Yeah. So as like this is a great question, and honestly one at no matter what stage you are at your professional life, you will always ask yourself, am I doing enough? Or am I doing justice to the investment I've made in my degree and the time and effort I've personally put into my degree? And that's a very personal question, which can differ to everyone depending on the stage they're in. But what they teach you in policy school is about levers. To get anything from the ideation to the execution stage, there are several levers involved, and you possibly cannot control each one of them. That is why it's so important to find your niche and to find which lever you want to associate yourself with. If you feel that at this stage, I want to associate myself with doing the research for education policy, for really getting out information about the state of education in my country or other countries, or in getting out, information about how to really implement more like motivation for teachers in public schools. That is a lever you want to tackle. If your lever is directly engaging with students, directly kind of doing the teaching, directly kind of going on ground and helping students day to day as principal of a school or as in the administrative part of creating or building the school, that is the lever you want to associate yourself with. If, for example, when it comes to education, you want to align yourself with the government who is making a lot of these big policies, and I've worked with the Delhi government in the education department, and they do a great job at it. They not only have people who are in the administrative side of things, they do hire a lot of people from universities, people volunteering at like organizations like TFI to really come in and give their insight or give their approach into what the policy should look like for these public and government schools. So if you think I want to be part of that lever that's really making, these policies, then align yourself with that lever and find ways to make it work. So you can't at any given time be part of all 5 of them or all 4 of them consecutively, because you also have limited number of hours in the day, and you might want to do that and you will get opportunities to do that. But I would suggest go one lever at a time. Find something that interests you currently, align yourself with it, work on it, and see whether it's giving you that drive and satisfaction that you want. Maybe you feel that, I'm stuck in this and nothing that I'm suggesting is going forward, there are too many people involved in it. Maybe I want to do some on ground in person work. Get involved in that. So you can change your levers. It's not important that, I've chosen one and I have to be stuck in just this profession or this kind of work that I'm doing. The good thing about policy is that a lot of your skills are transferable. Whatever knowledge you get from one sector, you can always transfer that knowledge and skill set to another sector, because a lot of it in the process part is interconnected. And when it comes to me personally, I feel that for me, something that I learned during my time in policy school was I really, really liked economics. I've studied a lot of developmental economics, and I really wanted to understand how is it that I can further and better my skill set of the same. Learning is one thing, but doing is something different. So I found the best kind of niche for myself in economic policy, where I can really read up, learn, and see how is it that, countries are rated, where is it in different parameters where they lack, how is it that the whole economic framework of different countries function, and how you can really align the public and private sector. So that's something I want to do right now, and what I'm really working for the past 1.5 years almost. But even for me, I apply the same logic to me. It doesn't mean that this is the lever I'm going to be stuck with for the rest of my life. It really depends on how interested you are and how much you want to learn from it, because every kind of step or every profession you get involved in will teach you something, and that's what's important, learning from wherever you are.
And I think it's very interesting to know that even you are looking to grow, like you said, from one part of policy to another. And I think everyone who's listening to us today would be like thinking on these aspects on how to kind of make your interest more dynamic in the field. So yeah, I think now we can ask our interns, like if you guys want to ask Muskan a question, because she's been talking for some while now. So I think, yeah, now you guys can start asking questions. Ayush, you had a question, right? I remember you raising your hand.
Yes. Uh, so I recently worked with an NGO where my work was related to concept building, where they actually wanted me to create concepts where they could allocate the funds regarding for development of the backward classes, mostly for tribals as well as for children. So I really enjoyed doing that, and that was the reason why I wanted to move to public policy. The closest I could find online was public policy. So, but I want to learn more about it. I want to pursue in this career forward. So, what according to you should be the way forward for me? Should I continue working with or partnering with NGOs in future while also pursuing something?
Um, so, I mean, it depends. Every person has different interests. You are doing great because you've already identified what you're interested in. You identified, okay, this is the kind of work I enjoy doing. Now, like I mentioned, there are 2 steps forward. You can either, if you feel that, I've learned enough from the on ground work that I've done, you feel that, okay, like maybe I know how this works on ground, but you want to really think or ask yourself, how do I make it better? What
Yeah.
is it that, I can really optimize about the process? Then you should either take up some sort of a course or some sort of a degree to pursue your studies in a specific domain, Now, why study public policy? Why do I recommend doing a course? It's not only because of the subject matter, but because you will be meeting people who have been involved in similar roles like you, or who have been involved in similar professions like you want to get into. So you get to really learn a lot from the people you interact with. You might be new to this, but there might be people who are coming into that degree who are maybe 3 4 years down in their professional career and now feel that, okay, I need to learn more about how to optimize or better my role as policy analyst.
Yeah.
So what that does is it gives you a wide exposure into the learnings or into the insights that other people have. That's one way. The second, if you think that, okay, like I've learned as much as I could from this particular organization, maybe I need to look into a bigger organization who's doing this work on a wider scale.
Yeah.
Get involved with them and learn how is it that I can again optimize this. And like I said, you can always move from lever to lever. Get involved with a big organization, learn from them, go back to your smaller one, get a
Yeah.
better, get a leadership role, and really implement all that you've learned. So the main kind of job or the role or path of progression in public policy is to learn as much as you can and then apply those learnings in a place you feel is fruitful or beneficial. And as easy as it sounds, it's very difficult to do. There's a lot of constraints, a lot of like loopholes and roadblocks that come in a way, but you can always at least start. Make the first step, and trust me, if your intentions are good, your idea is good, it will find a way to really come out in the implementation process.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, if you guys don't have one, I have one question.
Sorry to interrupt. There are questions in the chat box.
Okay.
Okay, wait. Let me see.
Someone is asking, I think, Nena, my final question is, when we talk about public policy, data is the word that gets mentioned the most. So how does a policy analyst ensure that policy analysis is based on reliable data and accurate projections to avoid unintended consequences? So Nena, I think this is a great question and something every data analyst or policy analyst struggles with every day. But I would suggest, you look more deeply into the profession, learn a statistical software or learn some sort of econometrics, because the purpose of econometrics and statistics is to really work on things like this. So when you get data, there's a lot of noise in the data. There might be very unclean data sets. Sometimes when people are filling in questionnaires, they'll like kind of put in the random answers or just do it for the sake of it. So the whole point of studying econometrics or statistics is to use modeling to drive out this noise, to take out these errors and come up with a projection or a forecast which is as close to the average or the mean as possible. So what we learn in statistics is you get a sample size and you use econometrics to make sure that your sample size is as close and representative of the entire population. So great question. I think if these are the questions you have, definitely get involved with data analysis. Pick up some course on econometrics online, like Coursera, edX, they offer some free ones, and you will learn a lot more. And trust me, it's like opening Pandora's box. So there's a lot more questions you'll have and a lot more answers also that you'll get from it.
I can't see any more questions in the chat.
Yeah, we can maybe take yours as the final one.
Oh, before you take that one, I wanted like interns to ask like one more.
Okay.
But
Hi,
yeah.
can I ask?
Yeah, sure, Radhika.
So you mentioned Coursera and edX courses. Do companies take online courses seriously?
That's a great question, but I'd say if you're doing online courses, do it more for skill building than using it as, point of leverage for companies. Because what companies look for really are the skills you have. So if, for example, you have the skill and you can talk about it and show them work that you've done with it, that is more valuable than having a certificate saying that you've done the Coursera or edX course. So derive the skill, use it for a project, you can do your own research project. There's no one is stopping you from that. Work with the Sarkari school, publish a research paper. That is actually showing them that you know how to use what you've learned.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, okay. So I think maybe we can wrap up by my last question, although we had a few, but we have a time constraint and we are hopeful that we can have you again sometime in
For
future.
sure. And I mean, please, you have my contact information, email me or message me on LinkedIn, and I can get back to you as soon as possible with a response.
Yeah, yeah. So I just wanted to ask this last question. I know we, not only our interns, we have a lot of external people as well who've joined this session to understand more about like a career in policy as well as like how to navigate through this career, right? I think someone like me, I think earlier when I joined the field, I constantly felt that I am like growing within the field and like I'm learning new skills and all. But when you reach a particular role or like a leadership role, you have to constantly work towards upskilling yourself and kind of at all points learning something new. And there are days where you feel very stagnated and like where you think that you're just doing things around it and not actually like growing like yourself from the field. So I just wanted to get a personal experience out of you. Like, do you feel that at some point, and what do you do to kind of tackle that feeling of stagnation, and how to still upskill yourself when you don't have the time to do that, and when you have to manage a lot of other things around it? So yeah.
So, I mean, this honestly is a struggle not just for people in policy, but for people in any sort of profession. Like stagnation hits your professional journey at some point. Because think about it, like your teachers in school, they used to teach you the same thing for 10 years, right? Like they've been teaching batch after batch after batch. Of course, they feel stagnated. But do they quit? Not a lot of them. A lot of them still continue. So, how do, like, and I'm taking this example because we've been talking about education policy. So whenever you feel stagnated or whenever you feel like I'm not growing, think about two questions to yourself. Think about that teacher in school who made the subject fun for you. Think about how they got that same energy, encouragement, and motivation to that class as they would for the batch after you and the one after that. So you need to motivate yourself and constantly know that this is the profession I want to be in. Because if you start doubting that, then all sorts of different kind of doubts will creep in, that maybe I'm not doing enough, maybe this is not the right profession for me, maybe I should really move to the private sector, at least I have some stability in terms of job there. So really be firm in your belief as to why you're doing this and why you want to dedicate years of your life into making this happen. And the second is that impact doesn't always showcase itself. You will not always see the results of the work that you're doing today or tomorrow or even a year from now. What you will see is the effort that you're putting. And your focus should shift from the result to the effort. Focus on putting in the effort every day. Focus on putting your best foot forward. Because once you do that, you will automatically see opportunities, people, organizations you can align yourself with. And I get it, burnout is a real thing, it's very exhausting. So give yourself space, give yourself time to breathe. make sure you're constantly re-energizing yourself. Take a break if you need to, but always be firm in why you want to do this. And that compass is what is going to get you through all these periods of doubt. Because trust me, they don't come once, they come at multiple points of your career journey, no matter which profession you're in. But as a policy analyst or as someone involved in public policy, the one thing that I've at least seen in common across, people I've interacted with is everyone has this sense of doing something bigger than themselves. They all have that common thread which connects them, which is that when I want to look back at my career, I want to look back at a career which has at least helped one person. And trust me, you do not have to help 100 people to be a successful policy analyst or to be a good person. If you're even helping one person with your action and you want to really make that a part of your life and you want to get involved in a profession like public policy to do that, you're already on the right track. So don't pressure yourself to think that, oh, I'm not seeing this result from my actions, or I'm not seeing this impact from what I'm doing. You might not even know the impact you've already created with your everyday actions. So don't doubt yourself. Believe in the reason you're doing this, and that should be enough to guide you.
I think that's pretty encouraging. And I think everyone who's listening to us would also like kind of gain this motivating factor out of this. And I hope like all of us have joined here who are passionate about this cause that we are working for. I think education is something that drives everyone in this meeting, and we have like heated policy discussions. So you sometimes fight with each other also, but it's also to bring out something for the education in our country. And I think this drive might take us forward, like you said, holding on to everything by an each day basis. And yeah, thank you so much, Muskan, for joining us. We'll have a formal vote of thanks which Shiv Priya will give. I think Shiv Priya is here, right? I can't see Shiv Priya. Okay. I I I will give the vote of thanks myself now that we can't say Shiv Priya anywhere. I would like to thank Muskan for joining us for this session. Uh, and we kind of had all of our interns joining in, so I think this session might have helped all of you. And obviously, Muskan is an expert and someone who's working in the field. And I hope that this session kind of gave you a in real life perspective into the field and gave you like a kind of pathway for your career in this field. We also hope that Muskan enjoyed interacting with like young policy enthusiasts who are in the same pathway. So I think it was meaningful for you as well. And we would also like to thank Abhishek sir for kind of encouraging us to organize this session and he was the one who got in touch with Muskan and kind of wanted you to come and guide all our interns in this process. I like to thank him also, and ultimately Sarkari School. We kind of work for this. We work so that we can give platform to people who are trying to make their marginal change in any field of policy, although we concentrate on like education policy particularly, but we would want to give platform to people like you, Muskan, who are making a change. So I think you were also equally delighted to join us for this meet, and I would like to thank everyone. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. We had a wonderful evening.
I learned a lot as well. It was honestly a privilege to, talk to you people and really like be able to offer insights. Thank you.